Hey folks, this is Rob with Cherry City Guns and Ammo, and today we're going to be reviewing the Smith Wesson M&P 45. Stick around, we'll take a closer look.
Ready.
Alright, before we get too in-depth on this thing, we're going to do a quick safety check. As you can see, the magazine's empty, as well as the chamber. You can feel down in there. So the M&P, the Smith & Wesson M&P stands for military and police, although they've always been available to the general public as well. The M&P's, the semi-automatic version, was brought out in 2005, although they had M&P revolvers going back to the early 1900s. So it's definitely not a new name. Now this one in particular, if you look on there, it says Bridgeport Police Department. So I bought this as a police turn-in gun. So there was a cop in Bridgeport that carried this gun for a number of years, and at some point they decided it was time to give him an upgrade or to give him a newer firearm. And what they do is they take these and they negotiate a deal with the manufacturer for their new guns to trade in all their old used guns. And these come out in large part into the used market. If you want to get into something like this very cheaply, it's a great way to go to find a law enforcement trade-in model. They're carried a lot, but shot very little. Anything that is wrong with this gun, it's not terribly wrong, is basically just from carrying. You've got some scratches here and whatnot, but the barrel is in fantastic shape and it's super, super accurate. Now what this is made out of, the frame is a Zytel polymer, and it's got an embedded stainless steel chassis. And then the slide and the barrel are also stainless steel, but they do a nitriding process called melanite that hardens the surface and also puts that finish on the surface, and it really fuses into the metal to the point where even if you wore through this to the point where it started to look like stainless steel again, you still have the hardening layer on the outside of it, the way that it kind of soaks into the outer layer of the stainless steel. So it's super tough finish, should last a lifetime, even with a lot of use and a lot of carry. Let's take a look at the controls here. As you can see, we've got the slides release right here in the kind of normal area. The nice thing is it has it on both sides. So if you're left-handed, or if you're one of the people that actually likes to do it with your index finger, you can do that. And then also for a left-handed shooter, you can take the magazine release, switch it to this side, and you're well set up for a left-handed shooter. Now, one issue I have with this gun in particular, and I really think it is this specific one, because I had a 9mm in this in an M&P, and I never had this issue. And as this takedown lever does not want to stay down. You're supposed to be able to switch that down, and it stays down while you finish taking it down. Well, I can't do that, so I have to hold it in place, release the slide, and then slide it all off. And once all the tension's off it stays down just fine. I don't know why it does that, but I found a way to work around it. And this is how you finish taking it down. You take off your guide rod and your spring, and then your barrel drops out. Pretty standard for most striker fired guns. It's the exact same way a Glock comes down. Slide that back in, put your guide rod and spring back in. And then you have to make sure this stays down, which as soon as it starts getting any tension against it, it wants to move. So you got to hold it down, push back, lock your slide, put that back down, and you're ready to go. We need to have some discussion about the trigger. So the trigger, it's a striker fired gun, and as typical with them, there's a little bit of creep. I mean, you got a lot of free play, and then you kind of come up against the wall, but even after you hit that wall, there's still some creep, as you can see, until it finally goes off. Now it's smooth creep, it's not gritty. It doesn't change the weight, so it doesn't stack on you at all. There's just a little bit of continued movement. But once again, that's pretty typical of a striker fired gun. If you've fired many Glocks, it's very similar to that. So I don't really have a complaint there. That's kind of par for the course. Now here's where I have a real complaint against the trigger, and that's in the reset. I like a very tactical and audible reset. With this, you don't really feel it. Like I thought I felt it, but that wasn't it. I had to go a little further. And there's the reset. You really have to kind of guess it. And it's one thing when you're sitting here dry firing. It's another thing when you actually have live rounds in it and you're at the range. I find myself, which is not as good from an accuracy standard, pretty much almost completely letting off and then starting my trigger pull over again, because I have short stroked the reset, because there's a little thing where you kind of feel a little bit of a click, but that's not enough. It didn't reset, and that time it did. So I don't really like letting off the trigger and then starting over again. It's not the most accurate way to shoot. Now, if you were using this in a defensive use situation, you're just going to be pulling the trigger. You're not going to be slowly releasing, waiting for the reset. So in that capacity, it doesn't really make a difference. I'm just talking about for really high performance accuracy shooting. It's not ideal. And could that be fixed with an aftermarket trigger? Possibly, but I really don't think it should. I like guns that come with a nice reset from the factory, nice and tactical and audible. Here's my Glock Model 29, my carry gun. As you can see, it's also empty. I took the magazine out. Pretty standard Glock trigger. But did you hear that? It's a very, very audible and tactile reset. And that's what I like. And that's what's lacking on this M&P 45. So that's really my biggest complaint about that gun in particular. I guess, like I said, from a defensive standpoint, it isn't really going to make a difference. I just am not a huge fan of that. So now, as far as there's some further things you can do to take down this gun. You can turn this piece to the side, and you can pull that out. This pin can be used to drive your roll pins out if you want to do a really detailed disassembly, but also that allows you to change out these grip panels. Now this comes with a medium one. If you were to buy one of these brand new, they typically come with a small, medium, and a large. You can buy these extra. From everything I've seen, if you get the law enforcement trade-in, they just come with the one that's on the gun, and they just come with the one mag with the gun. They don't come with any extras, unfortunately. If you don't like the medium, these can be had for pretty cheap to get the replacements. But for me, even with as large as my hands are, that medium actually fills it out really well. It's got a very generous palm swell. It gets real fat right here. It really fills out the hand well. Maybe I would like the large better, but I like the medium just fine, and I by far have the biggest hands in my family, and everybody else in my family is just fine with this. So I probably won't even worry about getting different grip panels. I really like these ones. They work just fine for me. Also, the way the grip is, you don't really have much of an undercut here, but you don't really need it. You get a nice high purchase on the gun, especially with the beaver tail back here. And one thing I like about the M&P series, you've got a very low bore axis. Now, if you're not familiar with what bore axis is, it's basically a distance from the top of your hand to the center line of the barrel. And with this, we're probably talking 3/4 of an inch. And why that matters, it doesn't really matter from accuracy standpoint, but it has to do with more follow-up shots, because the higher your barrel is above your hand, the less you're going to be able to mitigate the recoil, and you're going to have more muzzle flip. Your gun's going to kick up more, and it's going to take you longer to get back down on target for a follow-up shot. There are some guns that have really high bore axis, and it tends to make shooting them a little bit difficult, at least if you're shooting them at a fairly rapid rate. This gun has a nice low bore axis. It really helps mitigate the recoil. even on the stout 45 that this shoots, which is pretty stout for a gun that's this light. But that low bore axis really helps you to handle that recoil. The sights on this, these came with night sights. You can't really tell here, but they are nice bright 3-dot night sights. The only thing I don't like, and it's pretty standard on these type of guns, is it has combat sights. And what I mean by that is you can't do a center hold. You definitely can't do a 6 o'clock hold. This is really meant to cover your target with the front sight. Unlike the 6 o'clock hold where your target sits on top of your front sight, or the center hold where you line up the top of your front sight with the center of your target, this is meant to cover the target with the front sight. So you're kind of obscuring your bullseye. Like if you were at the range shooting, you're going to obscure your bullseye to shoot this. And it took us a while to kind of figure that out. In the shooting clips there, shooting the steel at 25 yards, you really have to cover that steel plate with the front sight. I know I can get aftermarket sights, which I may do. I really like to have a nice center hold. I feel like I'm able to shoot much more accurately with that. Once again though, this is made as a carry gun, not a fine precision aiming gun. Although the accuracy in this gun, it lends itself to that. So by changing out the sights so you can either do a center of target hold or a full-on 6 o'clock hold, at least for range use, would actually improve this quite a bit. All right, folks, to sum my opinion of the M&P 45, it's an ultra reliable pistol with some really great accuracy. My negatives on this pistol are very, very minor. I'm not a fan of the reset, or almost kind of lack thereof. And then there's the takedown issue with this gun in particular. I don't think that's across all the models. I used to have one of these in 9mm and I never had that issue. So that seems to be an issue that has maybe just come up with this gun over years of use, and maybe something I can get fixed. And if I can't, it's really not that big a deal. It's just kind of an extra step. So thanks for sticking around and taking a look at the M&P 45. We've got a lot of other videos coming your way. We've been filming a lot of shooting footage so that we could do some more of these videos for you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, it'd mean a lot to me if you can subscribe and hit the bell notification so you get notified anytime I've got new content out. So until next time, folks, have a good one.